Daddy eats lots. Daddy eats lots. Daddy eats lots. Munch, munch, munch.
Hello and welcome to Daddy Eats Last, where we discuss the challenge of being a man in modern society and what the hell that even means. I'm Kane, and with Matty off having a date night, whatever that entails. He said his wife goes to bed at 8:30, so happy days for Matty. It's just me and Ryan. How you going?
Yeah, g'day, mate. Doing well over here. Sun is shining. Apparently there's a soccer match that people are getting a bit excited about in a few hours here in England.
It is 3 hours until England kick off their Euro 2020, which is now Euro 2021 campaign. So they play Croatia, which will be a good game as far as the match goes. The grudge match is their next one, which is against Scotland, but today kicking off against Croatia. So, mate, you should go to the pub and watch it because you'll never experience an atmosphere like that.
It is a bit lost on me, but I'm starting to appreciate actually how big of a deal it is over here. So I think, yeah, I'm gonna have to get myself into it and check it out for sure.
Go down there in a white shirt because England generally wear white when they're the home team, so you'll fit in. Don't go in there. Don't go in a red and white check shirt or red, which is the Croatian colour. So try to go in white. You'll fit in.
Can't say I have a red shirt or a check shirt, so I think we'll be all right.
Right. Didn't take the flannel over from Australia.
No. If I brought the flannel over, it would definitely be a blue navy checked flannel.
I love it.
For sure.
Oh, just as an aside, I actually went in 2010. I was in Europe and I went to a few different countries with a mate. He was really into Pearl Jam, so I went and saw some Pearl Jam gigs with him. I was his sort of, plus one to go around and see Pearl Jam. But also at the same time, we'd go and watch the World Cup matches on the big screen in the town square we're in. So we happened to be in Holland when Holland were playing at home, or the Netherlands when the Netherlands were playing at home, same thing. We're in Spain when the World Cup final was on, and Spain was in the World Cup final, and Spain won the World Cup final. It was honestly just an amazing experience. And people would say to me, "Oh, that's really lucky that you were there for that." And I go, no, I entirely planned for that to be the case because Spain were the favourites. I thought, I'll be in Spain for when the World Cup final's on because a fair chance Spain will be there, and it just turned out perfectly. So get along. Yeah, it's unreal.
It's no, I definitely will be. You've got me twisted with the arm, but it'll be it's a good bet to go with Spain being the favourites because it's not always the case that the favourite will win.
Yeah,
Who's the favourite for this Eurocomp then?
France.
Oh, yeah. God, that's terrible. I'm pissed off with France right now.
Yes, but between France, Portugal, England have got a fairly good chance, to be honest, if they play up to their potential. But this is the thing about England, they never do. It's gonna be fun to manage at work. A couple of upset English people. To be honest, I'm already thinking of the Ashes 6 months from now when we beat them there. But I'll get a bit of interest in this football thing and check it out. But I think I'm a bit annoyed with France because they burnt my climb later this year because COVID keeps changing and everyone keeps carrying on about it. So I'm gonna have to climb Mont Blanc in 2022 thanks to the French government. Oh, it's COVID.
Exactly.
Now, what we're going to talk about tonight, and it's on the back of what happened this morning in a game between Denmark and Finland. Probably the best Danish player, Christian Eriksen, who used to play for Tottenham and has been at Inter Milan for the last 18 months, collapsed late in the first half. And basically, it was amazing scenes. I've seen a little bit of video footage, and it's pretty distressing to see because he literally, someone goes to throw the ball to him at a throw-in, and he just kind of looks like he's drunk and falls over and is unconscious for minutes.
Wow.
And the referee stopped it immediately, called on the team doctor, the physio, and then called on the paramedics, and they basically revived him on the field. So he stopped breathing, his heart stopped on the field. They revived him, and apparently he's all okay, which is amazing. And he may never play soccer again, but he's alive.
That's incredible. I mean, we were talking about this just before we jumped on here because obviously it's just happened, not something that I've seen. But do they know what happened?
They don't. It's been a couple of incidents of this happening before. There was one at the Confederations Cup in 2003 where a French player actually died on the soccer field in an international tournament from a heart issue. There was another player who survived a similar issue. So they think it's definitely related to his heart, but they don't know what it is. Obviously, the conspiracy theorists out there are saying it's related to a COVID vaccine, but the latest news I saw was that he hadn't had COVID. He hasn't had the vaccine. So, but the conspiracy theorists are jumping on it because it's related to his heart. But this has happened before in sports people in soccer.
Yeah, and I think it's also happening in the AFL, and it's just distressing, isn't it? Just to, like, an emergency like that completely comes out of blue. I mean, we're probably talking about a guy who is phenomenally fit, healthy, and so forth. So it's it's distressing, that's for sure.
Yeah. So on the back of that, we're going to talk about medical emergencies tonight. Obviously, luckily, I haven't myself or my family or any of my friends have really gone through something that traumatic, which is I'm really thankful for. But I've seen a few bits and pieces and some pretty gruesome sporting injuries. Players I've been really close to, as well as family and friends who've been hospitalised. So we're talking about medical emergencies which have required some level of hospitalisation. So.
Yeah, I suppose what do you do with those things? It's quite hard, isn't it, to kind of know, I guess what to do in those things. I'm much the same as you. I'm quite fortunate in that I haven't had anything that's sent me to hospital in an emergency that I can recall off the top of my head. I've had a few close shaves with the concussion in footy and a few kind of broken bones here and there and whatnot, but nothing to that extent. However, I have seen some things when I was in the intensive care units doing a bit of work in hospital way back when in a former life, and similarly have been involved and at the scene of a couple of things. 12 months ago I was in London where there was a child that had passed out, like 2-3. The parents were in a bit of hysteria. About 10 years ago, somebody was on the ground, kind of passed out. We think had been hit by a car and so forth. And fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on the way that you look at it, but having had a bit of a medical background, I have been providing immediate first aid in those instances, waiting on ambulances and so forth. And it's a very distressing situation, let alone, what's happened with the soccer where, you got half the world watching, and having to make judgment calls there. But the way people react or don't know what to do, or even the people, as a person who has been front and center providing first aid, waiting for paramedics, fortunately having been first aid trained and having to refresh that and so forth when I was treating as a healthcare practitioner, you also don't know really what you're doing. I mean, you do because you've done training and that kind of thing, and you know ideas and steps and that sort of thing, but it's you're just in the moment of those situations, and you just kind of literally, probably like most people in those situations, running off adrenaline, and obviously you got to keep very calm and so forth, but it's worrying. It's worrying for everyone, and especially as you get more, as these situations happen, more and more people will come around, they'll crowd, they'll do all these various things, and everybody manages it a bit differently. So it's a very tough one to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I guess having that background in health, you have a base level of training, and you also have the capacity, because you've got that training, to keep a clear head. I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is that ability to think clearly, what am I going to do next? What do I need to do here to help X person or Y person?
Yeah, I think it's I would encourage everybody out there to go and do a first aid course. Like, genuinely cannot stress that enough. Because you don't want to be, one of the instances of the couple of times that I have been involved in a situation like that is you could tell that there were people surrounding it, kind of all looking at each other because nobody actually knew what to do next. So we definitely encourage people to do that. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, there are some things that are just left field. Like, I'm sure once this thing plays out, it will be a 1 millionth kind of heart disease element that he's got, that he's probably had maybe since birth or whatever, that may or may not have ever shown itself. And it's just unfortunately shown itself. It may not be. It could be something, as the COVID people are saying, it could all be related to that. But there are just some things that you cannot get any sight or sign of, and it's when they happen, and I guess the dial goes from 0 to 100. It's sort of, especially as guys and parents and so forth, it can be extremely frightening.
Yeah, anytime, especially with somebody like it's bad enough if it's somebody like you. I say you don't know, like if you saw someone who's passed out and you help them. Like, I had my father-in-law go to hospital we got the call at 4 a.m. that he was going to hospital because he's having some heart problems, which was really distressing. He turned out to be fine, and he's probably 5 years on from when that happened now. But when you get the call at 4 or 5 in the morning that someone's going to hospital because they've got an issue with their heart, it's really stressful, and you worry and those sort of things. And my dad, like at 7 o'clock, so probably 7:30 one morning, going back maybe 20 years, probably 25 years now, almost. He's a carpenter, and it was a cold morning, and he had an electric saw, and he's holding a piece of wood, and his saw jammed on the wood, and he went across his thumb, and he ended up needing, plastic surgery on his thumb and microsurgery on his thumb to, I would say, almost reattach it, but like he'd almost severed his thumb off with an electric saw, a circular saw. And then, that was, 6 or 8 weeks of rehab. He was at that point the only person in the household who was earning income, apart from, me picking up golf balls for $5 a night sort of thing. I threw a couple of fivers into my mum's purse every now and again. But yeah, like it's even little things like that. Like, it'd be as serious as a heart attack, or, as I say, not non-life threatening, but almost sawing your thumb off, or my little fella going to hospital with croup. No matter maybe how serious the thing ends up being, at the time, it's really scary.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's much easier when it's people that you don't know. Fortunately, I've been in situations where I've had to provide like immediate first aid, but they've been literally like side of the street situations, whether depending on the way that you look at it, really good timing or really bad timing on my part to actually be there and see them happen. But people that it's a whole nother level. And you're right, it's intense. And I mean, many of these things, fortunately, don't go south. Like, they will stabilize, and if you keep a cool head, they'll be okay. But I think there's a premise with these things of, effectively, if you don't make it worse, you're probably doing a very good job with them. And listen to the ref, and you're basically like stopping it, calming it down, not turning it into a hysterical. It's like, if you don't make it worse, because it is very easy to make them worse, then that's probably a first point of call. But also just, and they're not great conversations to have, but just having some basics in place around planning for the worst, expecting that something in life at some time will absolutely punch you in the face like this, and just knowing who is your next of kin, who is, there, that who are the people that you'd probably call at 4 a.m. I remember my brother almost sliced his finger off while he was working in a bar in Canada, and absolutely scared the shit out of my mum on the other side of the world. He got it stitched up and it's all okay. But, just having a bit of, in his instance, he knew who was around him, who was able to help him, who could get him to the hospital, who he could call at 4 a.m. and that kind of thing. And just even knowing that these people are there and around, if and when something like this happens, is a big help.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's sometimes a lot of these things is not foreseen. Like your brother's working in a bar. We've had incidents where playing soccer, and I know actually probably 3 or 4 people that I'd played soccer with literally broken their leg, like severely broken their leg on the field when I've been playing there over the course of like only 5 years. And this is sort of, I'm talking about broken foot's facing the wrong way, or dangly sort of foot, not just like a minor break, like serious sort of, green stick in the back of an ambulance sort of stuff. And even things like that, like you're playing, Saturday afternoon sport for really for fun. And, you're probably out of work for 6 weeks, and, that, as well as just the pain you're in at the time. Like a lot of this stuff you can't foresee, but like you say, if you can take steps where the people who will really be able to help you at least know about it or get called, then it takes some of the stress out of the situation anyway.
Yeah, you just take some of that oxygen out of the fire, really. And I think, like, what we've seen today in the sports thing, once all the media hysteria calms down and whatnot, if there's anything there, and, you're right, he may or may not ever play again. And if he doesn't, that would be quite sad. But, no sporting game or no work or no nothing is worth, putting your life at risk. But if there's anything with when these things happen, is just actually a little bit of a reminder to go, bit of gratitude that it hasn't happened to me or somebody that I know today, and so forth. But a reminder that it does happen and it could happen, and that actually it can be a good opportunity to take stock and be like, oh yes, maybe I should do a first aid course, or maybe I should just turn around and think, okay, if, my mum was to get unwell, or a grandparent or something like this, who would be there, who could do what, and just have that kind of ready to go in the event, I guess, that something unforeseen comes along, which is a good reminder of what has come about today.
Yeah, and also to make the most of life. Life is short, and it can get, can be snuffed out at any time, unfortunately, be it via a pandemic or whatever's happened today, even though the guy pulled through. So you're going to make the most of life, Ryan. So you should go to the pub. You should go and cheer on England and get involved. And that way, the other flip side of that is if Australia lose in 6 months' time, the Ashes, you can say, well, I've always supported England at sport. Like, I'm not really Australian.
I don't think that would ever come out of my mouth. But no, it is a good reminder. And, ultimately, if anyone listening actually turn around and take some time out, whatever day you're listening to this, to go and enjoy a bit of those things that you keep putting off, whether it's go and sit by a beach and watch the waves, or go and watch some big football match that everyone in Europe carries on about.
Oh, mate, we'll wrap that up for this week. That is all for Daddy Eats Last. We will catch you next week.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.